1 through 8, right? It's easy for those guys to feel a part of the program because they're living it, they're playing in games, they're doing those sort of things. It's the 9, 10, 11, 12 guy, right? That I'm always trying to reach because I want them to feel like they're a big part of what we're doing. Because the fact of the matter is, if you didn't have 9, 10, 11, and 12, it makes it hard to do anything in practice, right? When you're trying to do live stuff, you can't do live stuff, and so you feel for those guys. It's almost like in college being a walk-on, right? When you have to go to all the games, put in all the work, and you know that you're never going to play, right? And so you try to make it so that if those guys can enjoy the program, then you know you're having an impact on all of their lives.
Welcome to the JAMODI Podcast. Today we're joined by the head boys basketball coach at St. Francis Episcopal School in Houston, Texas, Harold Baber. Coach Baber played at the Colony High School for legendary coach Tommy Thomas, and then for Greg Campy at Oakland University. He's in his 27th year of coaching, 19th as a head coach. His career record is 369 wins and 237 losses. At St. John's, Coach Baber led his teams to 3 SPC state championships. He's led the Wolves at St. Francis to state championships the last 2 seasons. Coach Baber was named TAPS 3A Coach of the Year in 2024 and TAPS 4A Coach of the Year in 2025. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at JAMODI Podcast. Coaches, want proof your players are working? Bology tracks every shot and generates workouts on the spot. No more guesswork. Train smarter today. Download the free Bology app. Coach, how are you, man?
Man, I'm doing great. Blessed to be here another year, seeing another Christmas, and knowing that Jesus is the reason for the season, man. And so we are here and just happy to be here, man. Turned 50 last year. So I know, man, we're not getting any younger.
It doesn't seem like Harold Baber should be 50 years old because this is, and I'll just tell you this from the very beginning, super special episode or opportunity to have this talk with you because when I moved to the Colony in 1996 from a small town of Pennsylvania, in the locker room was an old TV stand. You know, we used to have the stand with the wheels on it with those gigantic TVs that you'd have the VHS underneath and you'd roll around. Well, there were all these tapes stacked underneath. And one was a highlight tape from one of your years when you guys made a really good run and had a great team. I mean, you had Lamont, you had, I don't know, Steve Houston, you had Shane. Steve Houston might have been a freshman. He was young, but
he got moved up. So he got moved up to varsity for district play that year. So, Shane, Lamont, Chad, Jeremy Stoner, Brad Birkenholtz. Man, we had a squad. And I'll tell you what, a lot of people don't remember this, but so Ben Higashida was probably one of our best players, if not our best scorer. And he tore his ACL playing football. He decided to play football going into his senior year, and he tore his ACL like 3 games into the football season. So he was like our starting small forward, and so we lose that guy and still are able to have an amazing senior year. And I think in '94, Mont and Shane them made it further than what we did. So, no, great times at the Colony though, man. That's for sure.
But it's just, I feel like I'm still that little kid watching or talking to you. You were so big to us and all those guys. And Coach Thomas did a great job of keeping your names and your legacies around just by having those videotapes. And we would watch them and it would just make us think like, golly, could we ever be like that and like those guys? And then you went on to have this amazing coaching career, play at Oakland. And for one of my favorite guys, Greg Campy, who I was able to have a talk with, he's incredible. So this is just an honor for me.
It is. I will tell you, it's an honor for me, Matt. And anytime you start talking about the Colony, man, it just brings like a lot of emotion because like the guys before me, the Jason Geneseks and the Rodriguez, Johnny Rodriguez. So those were the 2 point guards in succession before me, right? And so I felt like I had like big shoes to fill, like just because of the program and how Coach T really did a good job, I think, of the next man up and really putting those guys who were in the program and scoring all the points and doing all the great things, right? To for us younger guys to come along, right, and see those guys and then want to imitate what they were doing. And the program was having so much success, right? And not just on the court, but I think what Coach T did off the court really set us up for success, you know. And at the time, I needed exactly what he was giving, and that was tough love, right? And it helped mold my life. And I tell people all the time, if Coach T would have been a turd, I probably would have ended up being a turd, right? Because I emulated him. I wanted to be like him. The dude was just like a magnet, man. Like he just gave you exactly what you need. He knew when to hug you, knew when to pull you aside, knew when to get on you. It's like this timing was impeccable. And you look back at it now when you're in those shoes as a coach, right? And you understand more now what he was doing during those times when probably as a 17, 18-year-old, you really didn't understand fully what was going on and what was going to be the impact on your life that this man would have, you know?
Great point. And he just had, Coach T had it. And my question is for you is, can a coach gain it? Or is just something that like you talked about that feel that he had for just knowing what a team needed, knowing what a player needed, being able to use humor and sarcasm and love to reach somebody. Can you grow that?
Oh, man, that's a $24 million question, man. I think you and I can make a lot of money if we could do that. So I think some
Yeah.
of it, I think some of it you can grow. I think a lot of it is your personality, right? And then you being comfortable with who you are. I think sometimes coaches, especially younger coaches, might get a little bit in trouble because they try to emulate somebody else, right? But it's not the true nature of who they are. So I think the more you can be true to yourself and find ways to have those moments, like in this day and age, I don't know if I can be as sarcastic as Coach T was. I would love to, you know. I know I can't speak and talk how he used to talk.
I think you might get in a little bit of trouble for some of the things that
Yes, but he gave you exactly what you
it
needed.
was.
It was just crazy.
Yeah.
So I think some of that you can learn as a coach with
Yeah.
experience, right? And learning those key moments of on when to hug a guy, when to lift him up, when you can be a little bit more harsh on him, you know what I mean? Critiquing his game. And I think for me, a lot of that, I try to do more of that in practice now than I do in the games, right? But even as an
Mm.
older coach, it still comes out in the game sometimes. But I just don't want to lose a kid for 2 or 3 minutes because I got on them too harshly, right? And so that's the
Yeah.
reality of where we are, man. But I do think you can learn some of it, but I think you just have to be true to who your personality is. And if you're a guy that can turn off and turn on the jokes and all of that, but get your guys to understand, hey, this is when it's time to be serious. And I think that I try to find the balance somewhere in between, right? So
I love that. I think what you said about finding out or being yourself is huge because I think players can smell fake really far away. And then so whoever you are and you establish that, like for me being new at Midway this year, I showed up and I was myself from the very beginning. And that can be it can be different than what they've had before. And but I think whatever you decide to show up as, then you have to be consistent in that. And Coach T was very consistent as a coach, and he had that unique ability to me. And obviously, he's still alive. So I'm saying in the
yes.
past, but when he coached us, I mean, he had that unique ability to make me feel, and I feel there's probably so many others, but just feel really good about ourselves because we've all had those players that, for whatever reason, maybe it was their parenting that they had, but they just have this incredible self confidence that they don't need any help. But I think the majority of players are actually, or people are pretty insecure, need somebody to believe in them, somebody to make them feel good. So, Coach T, I could still feel it or see it. I would walk in and I'm just being walking myself kind of quiet. And he's like, Matt, how's your day? I was like, oh, coach, it's good. It's a good day. He's like, yeah, heck yeah, it's good. Like, why wouldn't it be good? He's like, look at you. People like you. You're smart. You're good at
Yeah.
basketball. You're good looking. You're in good shape. Like, why wouldn't you be good, Matt? Like, by the end of that run that he was on, I'd start to think, yeah, like I
Yeah.
should be feeling really good. Like he's
Exactly.
right. But
Exactly.
I want to harness because you're right. I'm not him. I'm not good with humor. and I'm not sarcastic, and I think sarcasm is a little bit you got to be careful with that one because sometimes it can cut deep and guys but I want to be a little bit of him, a lot of Scott Drew, a little bit of Dave Bliss with the way that he did prepare and things. My first coach at Baylor, so it's kind of fun now to and then the guys you work for to kind of look back and pick and choose those parts. But then, like you going back to what you said, it all has to ring true with who you are.
For sure, no doubt about it. And the ironic thing about that is, so I played for two very fiery coaches, right? I had Coach T, right? And then I had Coach Campy. And so those are both two fiery guys, right?
Right.
So as a young 30 or whatever year old I was, man, I mean, I came out spewing fire, in practice, right? And then as I got older, you just have to pick and choose, you know what I mean? It's so weird, man. A lot of guys that I coached when I first got into this, they'll come to a game, they'll bring their family, they got children now and everything. It's awesome sight, right? But they for to a man, they always say, Coach, you're a lot softer than you were back when I was playing. They all I mean, it's to a coach, you're a lot
How does
softer
that
than you
make
were.
you feel when you
Yeah,
hear him say that?
well, I think growth mindset, you know what I mean? Just a growth mindset and like
Yeah.
when you're first out, you're trying to prove to yourself, you're trying to prove to the
Yeah.
people around you, you
Trying
you
to
know,
figure out who you are. Yeah.
yes, yes, yes. And so you sometimes may be a little bit insecure on some of the things you don't know, right? And so I think as a young coach, that's one of the things that you do, right? You try to you do emulate what you know, right? And so I knew Coach T, I knew Coach Campy, both great coaches. I would say Coach T was more defensive oriented. I think every year we led the DFW Metroplex in points, allowed. We were down in the 40s, allowing points. And then Coach Campy was I would say, an offensive minded guy. He believes in defense, right? But when we were there at the D2 time, we were just like an offensive juggernaut. We could score at will, you know what I mean? And we valued defense, but we just his philosophy was just scoring, when I was there. And so great philosophy. So you take what you need from those two coaches, right? The guys that you played for, and then you put your own spin on it in this, man. I mean, to this day, I'm still using, I think Campy used to call it Atlanta. I call it two inbounds play that I thought was just unbelievable. You can't stop it, baseline out of bounds play. And I'm still using it. I've used it from my 20, I think this is my first year of coaching high school. I think 28 years overall, coached college for a while. And so I'm still using that play, man. I'm still using it because it works, and I've added a few little variations off of it and, put it in there. But the foundation was what I learned from Coach Campy, you know?
Man, great point about maybe when you're younger, the insecurities coming out and how those come out. I think you do want to, as a head coach, you want to be known as the person that has the answers. Players can come to you and you know what to do. But truth is, you're learning a ton and right along with them. I don't know about you, but going back and watching or listening to some of the early years at Faith, kind of hard to watch or listen because of how much I was saying throughout the game, but then really how negative a lot of it was. And I think I just kind of jotted down, I think insecurity as a coach can sometimes be masked by fury. I think that the angrier I am or the louder I am or the more active I am, it shows that I care. It shows that I'm in it, that I know everything, or that it's their fault. It's not my fault because they're doing it wrong. I taught them right, but they're not executing. But then you get older and you realize, well, maybe a little bit less is more. Maybe we do more of our work in practice. And in the game, it's more guiding them and then helping them to make the choice, right?
For sure. No, I think you're exactly right on that point. For me, I think I switched gears about district time, right? And so even though I'm not as hard on guys as I was 20 years ago, like in those early games, I'm really pushing. And there's a lot of teaching and coaching going on during that time,
Yeah.
but really pushing guys, hey, there's what we want. Here's a situation. Here's what we got to do better at, and really trying to redirect in those in-game strategies, right? So the hopes is that when you get to district, we've had it figured out, and now I can kind of pull back a little bit and be like, okay, now everything that I'm doing is positive, right? And I think that I'm so different than I was, even 10 years ago, right? But still, like those early games, those non-district games, those tournaments, I love getting 4 games, 5 games in a weekend or something like that, just to get the
Yeah.
reps, right? And for us this year, we have a really young team. I mean, we got 2 seniors, 2 juniors, and six, I think was 6, 7 sophomores, and 1 freshman. And so we're super young, man. And so just really trying to get my point across a lot in practice, but in those early season games, and then in district, there's always a switch that I flip to, like, hey, you know what? I need to be more calm. And then Coach T, I remember him coming to a championship game, like one of my first couple years. And I was at St. John's. Coach T came, and after the game, he was like, hey, it was like a back and forth. We're in a state championship game, and Coach T after the game, he's like, H, in those moments, you got to be calm. You got to be calm, because when your players see you calm, then they're going to be calm. If they see you, especially at the end of the game, and you're kind of emotional and all of that kind of stuff, right? Then they're going to be like that. And I was like, you're absolutely right. And I was like, but I don't remember you being too calm in those moments.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, he's giving really good advice, but I've
Oh,
have film of him starting with a
oh,
jacket, a vest, and a tie on, and then jacket
yeah,
comes off, vest comes off, tie, and he's just sweating and he's out. But you know what? I think you and I both really got from him and anybody that was around him or played for him is respect for the game.
yeah,
I always felt like he respected the process. He respected just what the game takes to improve and be good at it. And that's something that, man, I think not all of our players are going to play in college, obviously, but we can impart in them all a respect for this game that they can continue to have through adult leagues. They can teach to
yes.
their children. And then if we're lucky enough to have players that become coaches, hopefully they pick that up too.
Yep, no doubt, man. It's crazy that like really, um the few guys that you have, when I say few, because you've coached hundreds of them, right? And so when you start putting in perspective how many guys that you coach that go to the next level, you know what I mean, and how many guys you don't, you're probably even the best coaches in the country are probably going to have more that don't make it to the next level than do, right? The numbers say that,
Yeah.
right? And so it's those guys who you want to feel like, I want them to feel a part of the program, right? It's 1 through 8, right? It's easy for those guys to feel a part of the program because they're living it, they're playing in games, they're doing those sort of things. It's the 9, 10, 11, 12 guy, right? That I'm always trying to reach, because I want them to feel like they're a big part of what we're doing. Because the fact of the matter is, if you didn't have 9, 10, 11, and 12, it makes it hard to do anything in practice, right? When you're trying to do live stuff, you can't do live stuff, and so you feel for those guys. It's almost like in college being a walk-on, right? When you have to go to all the games, put in all the work, and you know that you're never gonna play, right? And so you try to make it so that if those guys can enjoy the program, then you're having an impact on all of their lives, right? And I think that's one thing as a coach that I try to keep in mind. Like, how is it for those guys down there? Let me check in with those guys, intentionally check in with those guys so that they know, hey, this is us, and this is our team, and team is everything. We talk about that all the time.
You're gonna find ways to celebrate those guys for sure
Yes.
and find ways to use social media to have their faces, their names out there as well. Because if it's only your leading scorers, if it's only the guys that are getting attention from local things, then your social media feed, which nowadays is one of the main ways you communicate with players and parents. And it's got to be looked at that way. You're allowing them to see inside of your program, you're allowing them to see behind the curtain a little bit, and you want to be highlighting more than just those great players. And an
Mm,
interesting point on what you said there about those, 10, 11, 12 guys. When I was getting started at Naaman Forest, working for Jeff Clarkson, who spent 1 year with Coach T at the Colony, that was our connection. But at Naaman Forest, I called Coach T and said, "Hey, what's one thing that you would do now that you weren't doing or you didn't do or you wish you could do better?" And he said, "I wish that I would have spent more time with 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I mean, and that was he was, I think, out. Yeah, he was out at that point by just a year or two, but a moment of reflection of, yeah, I probably should have invested in those conversations, got to know their stories a little bit better. So I think that's
And
interesting that you brought that up and that he did too.
well, it's not a coincidence because I got it from him, right? Because that's one of the things that talked about, that he wished he would have done better, right? And so now as an active coach, right, then my mentor, my good friend, I'm gonna do is stood up in my wedding, right? Coach T did. And so he talked about that. And so now it's become a part of what I do, right? And so that I have those relationships and you learn through, I learned through him and something that he wished he would have done more of. And so he passed that knowledge on to me. And so now I make sure to do a better job with those guys.
I think we can have those guys near the end of or outside of your rotation guys. What we can do for them is rely on them a little bit to let you know what the pulse of the team is at any given time, especially if it's guys that, are understanding of their role, want to be a part of it, see the value in being a part of the team and the program, work hard, show up every day, like that walk on idea that you said. Those sometimes are really good culture guys that are great with relationships, great with their teammates. Everybody loves them. And so one role that you can, I think, can rely on them for is, hey, how's the team doing right now? Just had a tough loss, 2 days ago. What's the pulse like? What's the feel like right now? What do you think the guys need? I think that some of those players that don't necessarily aren't in some of the focus points, they can really add some value that way.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. I think they can. And I think just checking in with them, you know what I mean? Whether it be about the team or just about how they feel, because if how they're feeling is usually indicative of how the team's feeling, right? And so I think either way that you do it, you can get some value into your program from it, right? Because if I'm checking in with 9, 10, 11, and 12, right, and they're struggling after this loss and they are, taking it hard, then imagine the guys that we're playing, right? And I think
Yeah.
it's always a good barometer to tell how whole your team is, right? If you are talking to those guys and they're feeling hurt or they're down or they're like, hey, we got to do better, coach, right? Then you kind of feel like good about where you are as a group because they're feeling it where they are, right? And I think a big key to coaching, man, and it's not always easy, is keeping those guys involved, keeping that whole team mentality and not just your starters and all of that kind of stuff, man. We had 7 seniors last year, and 5 of them are fortunate enough to go and play college basketball. And so you had a bunch of young guys, even though those 7 guys were getting all the majority of the minutes, right? And then you sprinkle in a sophomore that you're trying to get ready and that, but the majority of the minutes came from those 7 seniors, and rightfully so, right? And so I grappled with that a lot last year on how to keep those guys that weren't as active and maybe not felt like they were a part of it, a big part of it. Being intentional before practice, after practice, having those conversations. And I think as a coach, that's one of the hardest things is you want everybody to feel like they're a part of it, right? And sometimes that doesn't equate to them getting on the floor. And I think honestly, I think players and athletes understand that more than parents understand that, right? Because, I've had to have some tough discussions with players over the years, like, hey, here's where you are, here's where I envision you in our program. And you're going to start off as a 10th, 11th, 12th guy. I usually play 8 guys, 9 man in my rotation. But I just want to be honest and open with you up front, and they get it and they're a part of it. But then as the season goes along, and maybe you hit a tough patch in your schedule and you're playing a lot of big time teams and big time games and so that guy doesn't play for 5 or 6 games, then I think that's when you really got to show him the love and just try to those is when the parent conversations want to happen and all of that kind of stuff. But it's definitely one of the toughest parts of coaching. I think is helping those young men realize that they are just as important as the guys that are getting all the minutes, right?
I think Coach T was good, even though he said that that's one thing he would like to do different if he could go back. But I think he was good with building relationships with all the guys. But, thinking back to the teams that I played on, and maybe you did, he didn't carry a lot of guys. And there's maybe something to that. When I hear about some of these big 5A or 6A teams that have 12 to 13 seniors on the team, on the varsity team, I'm just thinking, man, the amount of player and parent feelings that you have to be conscious of or juggle or help. That's a lot. One thing he said, and this isn't him being callous or cold, it actually makes a lot of sense. He says, he said, if you cut them in August, they won't be mad at you in January. And I think there's a lot to that. Either you let them go in August because personality wise, or you've had a conversation with them about where that you see them, like you said, you see them being, and it doesn't fit with them or it doesn't fit with their parents. You let them go early so that they're not a headache for you and your team later on. But also too, I think it goes back to what you said, and Danny Henderson has said this before, of having those transparent talks early on, and almost to where you give them the ability to say, I don't want that, or yes, I do want that. And then almost like a handshake deal with them and their family of, this is the way it's going to be. You got to be okay with that. And if you're not, that's all right. Like, I'm not
Yeah,
upset, but I think he was onto something with shorter teams or less guys on the bench, but then having those open and honest conversations or making those decisions early on in the fall.
for sure, no doubt. And with these 7 seniors that I had, I kept 10, like we kept 10. But I tell you, 10 gets hard when somebody has the flu, when somebody has a big
Yeah.
project that they have due, right, or something like this, right? It never fails. And then you're trying to bring up a JV. When I got to St. Francis, we only had one group, right, and that was JV. We started with just a JV, and then we moved everybody to varsity next year. So we didn't have enough numbers to have a varsity and a JV, right? And so now we have a varsity and a JV, but sometimes it gets a little thin. So that was like I kept 12 this year. And this is probably the first year that I've kept 12 in a long, long time. I remember my first year coaching, I think I kept 16. I inherited a job and there was like you said, like 9 seniors, right? And so I wasn't gonna get rid of any of those seniors because I think at that point I would have done more hurt to the program starting off than help, by getting rid of some of those seniors, right? And so I inherited a team with 9 seniors or 10 seniors or something like that. And we had 16 on the roster. So now imagine now you got six, you know what I mean? And a lot of them weren't basketball. They were guys who like playing basketball, great guys. Most of them are doing well today, lawyers, doctors, this kind of stuff. But just, when you're starting off and you got 16 and it's not like your rec center and you're trying to divvy, okay, you're gonna get 2 minutes and you're gonna get 2 minutes and you're gonna get 2 minutes. It doesn't work like that, right? And so that was a challenge in itself right there.
And I want you to know that you're my fourth colony connection I have on. And this isn't in any order or anything. So I don't want you to think, golly, like I'm fourth on Had Coach T. Had Coach T, right when I first started doing this thing 5 years ago, had no clue, but he was, on the top of the list. So I think he was fourth or something, and maybe gave me a hard time about that. And then had Darren Williams on. I think that's fair. And then Cleve Ryan, who's done just an incredible job the last. It's pretty cool to think that our high school program has only had two coaches
Too.
since it's been around. That 30-year reunion, that was, man, I don't know how many years ago now that was, maybe almost 10 years ago that we
Yeah,
had that.
yeah.
Were you able to be at that?
I was there
That
for
was
sure.
super
I,
cool.
I got a
Yeah.
I got a chance to bring out Coach T, and I just
Oh,
remember
yeah.
him, and I remember him saying, so I'm getting a little teary eyed and whatever, and he's like, "It's not gonna get any easier."
That's right. That's
Typical
right. And
Coach
he
T
got his
fashion there,
paper out. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember he started with the tie, and within seconds the tie was off, man. But no, that was a great time, man. Just to see everybody, to see all the guys, and to only have two coaches in the whatever the college, how long it's been there, 30, 40 years or whatever, is just amazing, man. It's just amazing. And kudos to those guys for doing a great job to be able to be around, you know, for that long. You know what I mean? So no, great guys, man. Coach Ryan, Coach T.
The question is like, how do we where there's been so many coaches at Midway High School, and it's been around since the 60s, I think. These are 60s. There's been and a lot of places that coaches go, they're not the second guy, and they didn't work for the first guy. And so how do we create that feeling of program, connect it all the way back, have younger players think the way that you and I did? You know, you were talking about those former Colony Cougars that I don't know, but I was thinking of you, but also Danny Decker, Greg Foster. Those
Yep.
were dudes that I was a freshman. I remember thinking, can I ever be as good as Danny Decker?
Yeah.
And have the names of these players still echoing in our programs. How do we do that?
So I think that you'd have to reach out to the guys, right? The guys that played before you got there, right? And you don't know. I think sometimes as coaches, we think we got to go big or go home. You know what I mean? And like, okay, I'm going to get, 20, 30, 40 guys back in here and I'm going to show them da 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 da. But I think it really starts with a few guys, a few people that you can maybe go back and find, through the people that are still at the school, right? Somebody that might live close to Waco or a guy that you could bring back and just really, just pick their brain a little bit about what things were like and all of that kind of stuff. That I think it's like that snowball effect. Like we start with one or two and we find those, you know what I mean? And who we can get to, right? Like not that it's somebody's gonna have to get on a flight or do this, or maybe you get them on a pod, or you can, this cell phone nowadays, you can just message them or something like that, right? And so you find a guy who is connected to the program, right? Who you think people speak highly of. And then you start with that one or two people. And I think you try to talk to them and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking about doing, and then I think one of the things I do well as a coach is empower others, empower assistant coaches, empower people around you. And you empower them. Hey, if you can get two or three guys together, who are the two or three guys that you would get, right? Who would you want to bring together? And then have them reach out to them and let's just say, hey, we're going to meet back, and it might be something that it might be a year or two process, right? It might be something that's slow and you just let it simmer for a while and see what you can get. And then you try to start bringing them back slowly and maybe celebrating some of the classes that they had, right? And really trying to show that, hey, I'm here, I'm new, I'm learning, I'm growing. The history of this program is important. And I think once you start showing people that the history is important, right, then they're eager to come back.
I jotted down some notes right there because one thing at my previous school we started to do every year was an alumni game. And just to slowly watch that thing grow over time and connect. I never really got to some of the earlier people from when I was there, so it took me a year or 2 to start building it, once you have a few classes yourselves. But at Midway, with the rich history that it has, it did feel a little bit overwhelming for me, like, how do I actually get this thing going? But you're right, 2 or 3 people, have it spread like a game of telephone, have them
Yes.
find 2 or 3. I have 2 assistant coaches that one has coached there for 4 years, so he knows some groups. The other played there in the 2000 in the teens. And so no excuses. I think it could happen for sure.
Yep, yep. No, that's it. And we're at St. Francis. The school's been around for 75 years, right? Primary school through 8th grade. So just recently, probably in the last 9 or 10 years, we added a high school, right? So I came 6 years ago, and so we're on a different. So we haven't had very many graduating classes, but it was like the guys that they all played for me because I've been the only varsity coach, so it's a little bit easier, right? So we had guys, Nigel Walls back from SMU, John LeBoy from Miami, Christian Hyde came back from Oklahoma Baptist. Corey Sign came back from Texas A&M, San Antonio, and so even a kid that left and came back, Aaron was one of my guys, man. And he just thought, he went to the prep school and he's coming back to Texas for school. And I never get mad at people for making decisions they think is best for their children, right? And so he even came back, so he feels like he's a part of it. And so I think even in that situation, just having those guys wanting to come back and me having a big group, but like that's going to be important, for me in the next 4 or 5 years till we have those alumni games and get guys coming back, man. So we always want to stay connected to our program. And for me, it's been just a little bit easier because having a high school that's only 9 or 10 years old and you being the only varsity coach that they've ever had makes it easier. But nonetheless, man, I think having the alumni and the guys that play for you come back and just be a part of it. I had John LeBoy come in the locker room before the game and just say, like, hey, man, you want to talk? Hey, sure, coach. And just let them have that opportunity, man, to impact those guys and respect what they did for your program. I mean, we won three state championships, those two state championships with those guys. I'm getting old, man. Back to back, yeah. Two, two, two
Oh,
state
your state
championships.
championships are running together. Can't keep them
Oh,
all.
oh,
Can't
well,
keep track of them all.
man, we had a great group, man. We had a great group,
Yeah.
and it's recent, right? It's recent.
The JAMODI Podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products.
No, they don't. You enjoy them, man. You enjoy them because you don't like, as much talent as we had, people just think it's easy, right? People just like anybody can coach that team. Where I get it, you know what I mean? It's like nobody thinks they can be a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant or whatever, but everybody in the world thinks they can be a coach, right? It's the one profession I would say where everybody feels like they can just, you know what? Hey, I can go out there and do that. I can mesh all of these guys together and make them believe, and they don't. I think the ones that know, the other ones, that might not know the game, might not understand what it takes to be successful. Those are the ones that's like, oh yeah, you could just plug and play. Yeah, you don't got, just let them play. Just roll out the balls. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that at all.
I've always been really impressed with the guys like that coach at Allen High School or Duncanville High School, where you do have this amazing pipeline of talent, and guys want to be there, and it sounds like your place has kind of been like that, and not in or Kimball, coach. I walk. Some people might think it's just all about talent, and I would challenge anybody to go to a practice at your place. I went to work out with the Kimball guys 2 or 3 years ago, and I walked into that place and I felt excellence when I first walked through the door. And then when I watched them train, I thought, okay, this is a different level. Not only are they super talented and good, but this is disciplined and organized, and there's purpose. Yeah, there's 8 assistants. I don't know how they did that. They're walking. Coach Smith had 8 assistants walking around.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
golly, it's me and 35 dudes in the gym.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, to that to me is pretty ignorant to ever say that, man, I could win with that. Maybe, but you better be darn good as a coach to actually be able to win with talent, because there's a lot of teams that have talent that don't win.
Exactly.
It's
Exactly, exactly, exactly. You're always managing something as a coach, it's whether it be egos or you're always managing something, managing the kids' attitudes, managing how we're gelling as a team. That's a big part, man. And so, I say this all the time. There's a lot of great coaches out there that don't win very many games, but they're maximizing their talent and maybe they're playing in a district or a league or a conference or whatever that has juggernauts in it, similar to Kimball and Duncanville and what have you, and they don't have that talent, but they might, keep a game close. Like it's the wins within the wins, man. People don't like you want to win all the games, that's fine, but sometimes a win is not winning the game. Sometimes, like for us, we're a young team. Sometimes playing a quarter well, that's a win. You got a young team. Sometimes being consistent, that's the win, right? And so you
yeah.
you hope you can stack good day after good day, and now playing good for a half turns into playing good for 2 halves, or playing good for a quarter turns into 2 quarters, and that's what you're looking for, is that consistency, right? And so, um, man, it's just like you're always, and it's hard for me to turn my brain off during the season, man. I know one of the questions you had on there was like the family life and the coach's life. How do you manage that, right? That's hard, man. I don't want to take this anywhere it doesn't want to go, but man, like I had to marry a lady who knew that I was a coach, right?
Yeah.
And because the sacrifices that I make, especially from October through March or whatever it is, I spend more times with other people's kids than I spend with my own kid, right? And that's hard. And now my son, my daughter's, she's a three-sport athlete. She plays select softball. My son is starting to play basketball. And so just you don't want them to feel like neglected and cheated, man. And so looking at it, man, you have to have people around you that really understand, who you are and what you do. And then it becomes easier. Like my wife is supportive. We have the guys over to the house at least once a year. They come over. We get some karaoke. She usually cooks. And so just to make her be a part of it, and we're talking about those guys and late nights and I'm sure sometimes she's like, would you just stop talking basketball? You know what I mean? It's just hard to turn off during the season, man. It really is. And so just having those people around you that support you and care about you and know who you are and know what it takes to, like she's been there at, when the lowest and when we didn't do well, she's been there for all the championships. She knows the work that it takes to get to where you're trying to get to, right? So I know you gotta feel that, man. And so just having that woman in your life, person in your life that can respect what you're doing and be there for you and with you on your journey.
And I'm so glad you went down that path, that direction. I think you're right on the money. You got to have somebody that how has your back, and because I don't know if other coaches feel like this, but man, sometimes this can feel lonely, and even at the high school level, it can feel lonely because obviously wins and losses do matter, and I want to go back to defining success in a little while, kind of what you said before, but sometimes like I've told Jana, just being in the midway not having not knowing a lot of people, not knowing what expectations really are from what they've done before to what we're doing now. But just knowing that I have her behind me, she has my back fully. That's huge. And then one thing you said about like your kids and them starting to play and your son playing for you. I just finished that season of life where my son played 3 years for me. You know what I found? The difference between that and now is like Jana is still wants to know how Midway basketball is going. She's interested, but it doesn't dominate the home. I feel like the way that it did the last 3 years because Landon was a part of it. And so like we're eating it or living it, breathing it together. And now he's home with us. And then she's there. Like we're just all so connected within it. So there was a little bit of it was kind of nice when that chapter was done, but then her having somebody that has your back and disconnecting a little bit. I'm not great at that, but a little bit more from when I get home, letting it stay there. That's been huge.
Yeah, yep. I think you have to find ways to disconnect. Yesterday we were talking about getting together and doing this stuff, and I spent like 8 hours at what's that the place with the go kart, Urban Air. So I just let my son go up there and just have it like at like, man, we're gonna spend a day's time up here, Sarah was doing stuff, her and my daughter Bailey, and so we're like, oh, we're just gonna make a day out of it, man. So we stayed up there probably way too long, but it was good, man. Just even to check in because he doesn't want to spend a lot of time with dad in that place. He's 9 years old. He wants to find friends to do all that. But just to check it in part and to sitting down there eating lunch with them, man, and just like, oh, you know what? Because I was tempted to pull out my computer and watch some film. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
but I was like, no, you know what? I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. We don't play until the 29th, and so that film's gonna be there whenever I get to it. But I think as you get older, Matt, and I don't equate oldness with greatness or oldness, like, but I think you start to put things into a different perspective, right? I think
Yeah.
perspective is the key. And then you realize that, you know what? I love my job. I love my school. I love St. Francis, but I love my family, right? Having those things to where you just are intentional, like you're intentional about, 9, 10, 11, and 12. You have to be intentional about like today is the day that I'm going to unplug, right? I'm not going to watch film. I'm not going to do this. Or sometimes you do like I do. If it's a Friday night, you wait till everybody in the house goes to bed, right? And then you don't feel as guilty. You know what I mean? Maybe you watched a movie with the wife and that, and so now you have some time late and you want to watch some film. But no, I try to be more intentional now about spending time with them, but also being present when I'm with them because sometimes you can be there but mentally you're thinking about, yes.
I was laughing. You said I didn't bring my laptop out of Urban Air. I was like, I bet he brought his phone out and he put that huddle on his phone. No,
I
because
did
yeah,
not.
it's so you're right. It's so hard to really disconnect for sure.
Yep, yep, yep. And so, yeah, I mean, that's a man. I tell you, I wouldn't. You know, I don't know if I could be anything else other than a coach. And I know, like, I could if I had to. You know what I mean? But I just think God has me right where I need to be to help these young people, man. And I thought about this because you're not really gonna get rich coaching unless you get to college or the pros. But that's never been my goal, right? And so I think just man, there's something about just the energy, the passion, the influence you have on, at this high school level that I've fallen in love with, and it continues to motivate and drive me, man. It's just and then having to be able to make the schedule, you know what I mean? And sometimes in the holidays you can schedule around, this, or if Bailey's doing something and she's a sophomore, she's going to be gone in a couple more years, right? And so just having that ability, man, and then being here to see these young people and to see them grow up, because college is a business, man. It's different, and I never experienced the pros, but I'm sure it's more of a business than college. That makes sense, right? But
Yeah.
man, here at this level, you think there's still some like hope of like before they get to this NIL and all of it, like this, like you can still really reach them, man. Kind of how Coach T reached me, and so that's the deal, man. But finding balance in this deal, man, it's tough. If you want to be good, like it's easy to find balance if this is just like a hobby, right? But if you want to be good, if you want to give back to your community, if you want to give back to the players, if you want to find success and define, like you have to be in it, man. 10 toes. You can't stick your toe in the water, So,
Some coach talk about the difference between yeah, or basically how you know coaching is your calling is that you do it for a long time. Like you're in it for a long time. You can't imagine yourself. And maybe you dabble with something. I dabbled with real estate for 8 months during COVID because I thought, man, I don't know if this is it. And then you realize, no, if basketball's not a part of it, I'm not. I'm not that passionate. I'm not interested. If helping young men to become or young ladies to become better, I'm not in it. Yeah, a couple things that you said there made some things jump out in my mind. One is perspective. I think when you first start out, like this is my 19th year, which so you're 10 years ahead of me, right? In experience and time, and you and I aren't young, but we're also not hopefully near the end. But we're about I would say I'm judging from what a lot of coaches do. I'm probably halfway. I'm
yeah,
right around halfway. But man, that first half has gone really fast, coach. Like it just seems like I just kind of got going in this. But my point is I'm closer now to my career in coaching being done. So what's it all about? Like I kind of start to feel that more and more as I'm getting older in this. Early on, I thought it was going to be about records and wins, hopefully some state championships. And then I've kind of blown past some of those things where it hasn't happened or it's become, I mean, winning a state championship would still be awesome, but I'm getting closer to the end. And I look up kind of behind my computer here is a wall of the past teams I've had and players that I've been able to coach. And then I've got these future, now current players and future midway players. And you got to think that it's got to be about more. And I think that's kind of hope that younger coaches can figure that out earlier
yep,
than when you start to get halfway through or near the end. You're like, golly, I mean, what's next? Or what was this really all about?
yep. No, I think the winning is good, right? But like when you really think about it, you will celebrate some state championships, but it's really the relationships, man. Really, I tell people all the
Yeah.
time, you're really in the relationship business, is what you are, right? And you find value into being a teacher, being a mentor. We call it coaching, right? But I think it's all kind of bundled in one for us because it's sometimes you teach, it's sometimes your mentor, sometimes you're a friend, sometimes you just need to listen and hear what they have to say, right? And you find value in helping these young men for us, or young ladies if you're coaching girls, helping these young men along their journey. And you find value in that. And I think finding value in that is what keeps you going, right? I find value in helping young men along their journey. And yes, we want to win basketball, but I say this all the time in my program, right? Basketball is what we do, it's not who we are. Right. And so I encourage young men to find other passions in their life, try to find, things that they can lead and guide them. I coached a kid, Justice Winslow, number 10 pick in the NBA back, in the NBA draft. I can't even remember. Was that 2015 maybe?
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so, he talked about, he got injured and he talked about being in a dark place because he didn't have anything like his whole life was basketball and how he had, all his eggs in the basketball, and so he found a way to through like photography and through other outlets to find other meanings, right? And so here's a guy who's made it to the highest level, right? And played there for 9 or 10 years. And so him like that again, you talk about perspective. Like here's a guy that's at the highest of the high and still needs to find ways to diversify what you're doing, right? And so as a coach and of these young people, if you can teach them before they get there, wherever they're going to get to, and it might not be in the NBA, it might be as a doctor, lawyer, another coach, whatever it is, you just try to instill in them like, okay, be a good person, treat people well, right? And you find as a coach, like that's what when I see that happening, and when they come back and they bring their family and you have those conversations, like to me, that's it. Like that's the value that outweighs the winning. Winning is fun, but losing is tough. But those bus rides home, when you got to talk to those guys after a tough loss, man, and trying to pull them up, and then you got to go do it. Maybe that's a Friday, and then you got to go do it again on Tuesday. Or I've ended my season many a times the way I didn't want to end it, right? The way my team didn't want to end it, right? And then have those conversations and finding some motivation like over the next spring and summer, and here's what we're gonna do, and we're gonna get a chance to come back. But also those seniors that you lose that don't get to end their careers. I was one of those guys who didn't end my career how I wanted to in high school, and it still stings, right? And you remember those things. But I think what you're doing is you're passing on information and you're helping kids along their journeys. And I think as a coach, you have to find value in that. And when you find value in that and you have people around you that support you, then I think you can be in it for like you have 20 years and myself for 27 years, right? Like that's what it is.
Well said right there. I think kind of brings me back to something you talked about before we went into impacting family and life like that, but defining success in different ways. Because like you said, your high school career didn't end the way that you wanted. Mine definitely didn't. And I tell my high school players like this won't be the highlight of your life. It won't be the biggest thing in your life, but it will be one of the bright spots. We want it to be a bright spot, but it won't be the brightest. You'll get married, you'll have kids, you'll have success in jobs, you'll have other things that in life are way bigger. But this will be something you do remember. And golly, we're number 2 in state with Darren and Bracy Wright. And we had other good seniors. They were sophomores, but they were going to be future pros. And we were really good, coach. And we got upset in the second round. I didn't want to take my jersey off. I went to my I don't know what it was, 25th, 20, I don't know, class reunion this past fall. We're going through the gym and stuff. And we went to coach now is the second gym that wasn't there when you and I were there, because the gym you and I played in is the third gym.
Yeah, yeah.
And then that practice gym that we practice is the fourth gym, because now they have the arena, which is beautiful. But
no doubt.
So some of our banners and stuff are in the second gym. And I went up and I looked at that banner and I saw the 99, 2000. And I saw 5 district champions and nothing else. And there's like that burning. So this stuff does matter, but we're going to have seasons, like you said, that don't end the way that we would like it to end. You've had a couple end the way that you want, or a few. I haven't had any of those. And my senior year at Baylor, we were 8-21, but we were incredibly successful, because sometimes it's, did you meet your ceiling? Did you reach your potential as a team? If you did, that's success. Was the culture of the team, were they really close? Were they really connected? Man, that's success for sure. And I think one of the things we have to do is continue to find or define success the way that we want and not just what outward success is, which is wins and losses.
No doubt, no doubt. It's the wins within the wins, right? And I think as coaches, that's what we're always looking for. It's good for the school, it's good for your community when you're winning basketball games. But you've been in it long enough that it's not going to always end the way you want it to end, right? And you're not going to have always the level of talent that you want to have or that others have, right? And so I think you have to always define success. And I think success, like people think it's static, or once you define success, then that's what it has to be. Success can change like within a blink, right? Success in a quarter, in a half, success in a 2 minute stretch, right? Success, you look back on a season and then you start to see, okay, look how much this young man has grown, since the beginning of the season, right? And look how our team has grown, right? And there's a lot of people outside of the guys in the locker room that might don't understand the importance of that. But when you talk about things like building culture and all of that other stuff, always success always has to move. Like and it changes with each team. It changes with almost with each game, right? And you have to be able to keep your guys up, especially like, you're in the middle of losing 3 or 4, 5, 7, 10 games or whatever. Like, okay, well, maybe success isn't just winning, maybe success is we had 28 turnovers. We're going to try to cut off from 28 turnovers to 20 turnovers, right? And so then
Are you talking about the Midway Panthers right now? Are you? You might be.
I might be talking about the St. Francis Episcopal Wolves. I might be talking about us, but no, that's what it is, man. And so I think people will always associate success with winning, and I think rightfully so. When you get to the NBA, when you get to the NFL, right? It's just that's what it is, right? It's all about winning. For us, I think we're still always teaching life lessons, and I think even the great NFL coaches and the great NBA coaches,
Sure.
I know
Yeah.
some of them. I don't know all of them, but I've had some contact with some of them. They're teaching life lessons to those grown men, right? And so I think as a teacher, you have to always find ways to motivate your guys. And people always say, well, you can't move the goalpost. Well, in this profession, you have to move the goalpost. The goalpost is constantly moving because if you leave the goalpost in one place the whole time, you might not ever get to the goalpost, right? And I've had some great teams that probably have underachieved, and I had some teams that were like, we won 20 games. Like, yeah, we won 20 games. Are you kidding me? And you didn't see it coming, and as a coach, you hope that you're gonna maximize what you got or whatever. But you get a group, man, and they overachieve. That's a tough word for me because do they really overachieve? You know what I mean? And so, but yeah, just like it's man, the success thing. I mean, we got to win, right, to stay around. You can't just lose games, and you can, it's a double-edged sword, right? You can have a great program. Kids can be graduating, going out, doing great things in community. You're doing community service and all of that. If you're not winning games, then they're going to be like, oh, yes, Harold, that stuff is fine and great, but you went 2-20, and last year you went 3-25. We're gonna have to go a different. You do a lot of community service, right? And you're teaching these guys lessons. But so I think just that success thing. It's always one of those words you know what it is when you see it, but sometimes it's harder to define than what people think.
Yeah, well said. I think every coach should watch and probably show his team at the beginning of a season or in the fall or at any point the video of Giannis talking about success. He's wearing an orange shirt, I think, in that video. And I just remember that because it's a bright orange shirt. But he talks about success because they didn't win the championship. And some reporter said, "Do you view this season as a failure?" And he just puts his head down. And he's like, "Why'd you ask me that?" He's like, "Well, you guys didn't win. You didn't go as far as you did before." He's like, "Okay, every day, if you wake up, you go to your job. If you don't get a promotion, is that a failure? Like every day, if you're not riding the best, is that a failure?" He's like, "When Michael Jordan didn't make the NBA Finals his first 6 seasons, was he a failure?" He's like, "No." And then he says this great line. He says, "There's no failure in sports. It's just steps to success." And I think that's what we're helping our teams and players see. And even in real life, is that you can do everything right sometimes and not get exactly what you want, but it's not a failure. It's just steps in that process. And hard, coach, to get that to your parents, to get that to maybe your administration, depending on what their expectations are. But I think to your players, to your coaches, that's how you get them showing up every day, trying to do their very, very best, not getting too high, too low. But that video right there, that's kind of in my top 10 of things I feel like players and coaches need to watch.
No doubt, man. No doubt. It's all a journey, right? I mean, sports are always scrutinized, man. People, I don't know, man. I have like when people say like this coach is bad or this coach sucks or something like that, I'm like, you have no clue. You know what I mean? Like, I really try never to ever bash a coach. Like, that's my thing. Like, you can't be in this profession and bad, whether it be NBA, NFL, like, you know what I mean?
Uh,
They have
Yeah.
what they're trying to do, right? And so I think for me, it's just really about knowing who you are, trying to find wins along the way, right? You know that winning is important in your mind. The kids know that winning is important. But if you always talk about winning, then it seems like that's when the winning never happens, right? And so we talk about getting 1% better every day. We want to get 1% better. That's what we want to do. If we're doing that, and I forget this, I might have got this, our coach T or coach Campy, I can't remember. But every day you never stay the same. You either get better or you get worse, right? And so we want to have a growth mindset, come in every day to get 1% better. And that's all. Like this year our thing has been just get 1% better every day and come in the door with an attitude that you're going to learn. Like just be a sponge and just learn. Like today I'm going to learn, today I'm going to try my best. That's it, right? And then that's how you start to build, especially when you have like a younger team, in my opinion, right? To build the foundation, because I mean, you're rebuilding the foundation. Like every year you're rebuilding a foundation and how you start, right? And then that's how you build a program, right? Is you have so many foundations and you've had so many examples of what success looked like, and then you keep all the stuff that was successful, right? And so at the bottom of what you're doing, you just have a foundation of what you did 10 years ago and what you did 5 years ago and what worked well. And then now you try to build up, and you build up for each team, because each team is going to be a little bit different. You're going to graduate guys, you're going to get some new guys, right? And so you take all of your successes that you've had and you try to build something that's sustainable, right? And it can't be like, you and I know it's about wins, but it can't be, at the end of the day, that can't be what you're about, you know, even though it's very important, right? And I think that win it all mentality will quickly get your program to where you don't want to be, you know? So it's a lot to juggle, man. I don't know. It's a lot. I'm still here. We're still doing
Maybe
it.
in year 40, we'll have it figured out. What do you
Man,
think?
if I am blessed to be doing this for 40 years, I will do it for 40 years, man. As
Love
long as,
that.
you know what I mean? Longevity. I mean, I see guys like Campy, he's still doing it at a high level. So some of these guys, Bill Self, some of these guys, man, are like 70, 75 years old. I'm like, shoot, I got at least to 70. I got like 20 more years in me. You know what I mean?
That's
Lord
nothing.
willing, in the creek, no, 20 more years. Now, the question is like, are we going to be so futuristic in basketball that they might not need an old dinosaur like me? Like where, you know what I mean? Like what's the game going to be like? Are they going to be playing on 12-foot rims? You know what I mean? Is it going to be a moving? Are we going to be on like a Space Jam type situation? You know what I
I'm
mean?
actually looking forward to the 4-pointer. I feel like a 4-pointer has to be coming where these dudes are just shooting so deep. Give them an extra point for that. Hey, Coach, this leads us right into the speed round because I'm going to ask you one of the questions we talked about. I'm going to throw it in the speed round, but I've known you, a lot of Colony guys know you and from coaching circles and stuff. But after the speed round, we'll just know you a little bit better. You ready?
Okay, I'm right. I'm ready as I can be.
Favorite ice cream flavor?
Cookies and cream.
Nice. Greatest shooter of all time?
Uh, that I played with high school pros.
Oh, yeah, any
Anybody.
all time.
I mean,
Yeah,
I got to say Steph Curry.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. Do you stand up or sit down more during games?
Ooh, that's a good question. Try to sit down more because I tend to be more animated when I stand up, right? And sitting makes me calm.
I like that. Your top 3 dinner guests, any time period, can be outside of sports.
Top three, man. And this is a speed round. I got to speed through that. I'm probably gonna say I gotta say somebody like Muhammad Ali because I liked his brashness, man, and just the boldness and kind of his story and what he went through. I'm gonna have to say, oh, man, I love movies, so I'm gonna have to go with Denzel. I gotta get Denzel at the table, right? I gotta have Denzel at the table, and then I gotta have my guy, my all time favorite, Magic Johnson, has gotta be at the table. Yep, for sure.
That's a good dinner.
Yep,
Dinner.
yep.
Best basketball movie of all time.
Ooh, man, I gotta go with Hoosiers, man. I gotta go with Hoosiers. Coach Carter's a second, but Hoosiers,
Yeah.
man. Yeah, yep,
Nice.
Hoosiers.
Now this is interesting coming for you because you
Glory Road
coached.
was really good. Glory Road is really good
Glory
too.
Road's good too. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Love the story for sure.
yeah, yeah.
You coached in college for a little while, came back to high school, and then SBC now actually has the shot clock. And so hoping that it moves around to personally hoping, but for high school shot clock or no shot clock.
Oh, shot clock for sure. And even when we don't play fast, man, like I know how, I mean, I can milk the game. Like if you get us to the last 2 or 3 minutes, man, and there's no shot clock, you might as well good luck with that. You know what I mean? Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I wish everybody would. I mean, we're in taps, but I love the shot clock, man. I think it helps the game. I don't know if I'm a fan of the 35-second shot clock, but what I am in favor of is making high school basketball games longer, maybe like 10-minute quarters. I think, yeah,
Is
like
that your
instead of
rule
eight,
change?
that would be my rule change for sure. Is just making it like a 40-minute game, like 10-minute quarters
Yes.
instead of 8-minute quarters. Man, it's hard to like.
Coach, you and I could really play 6 or 7 players, and I know I just did the 6 or 7. We could play 6 players. I feel like I don't feel like we have to get that deep, even trying to play fast. I think kids, there's so many stops. 32 minutes is so short. I would love that 40 minutes.
Yeah, 10-minute quarters. That would be my change for high school basketball for sure.
Yeah. And that's good. That's a good one. Do players sit the rest of the first half with 2 fouls?
No, no, no. It's and early on, especially with some of your key guys, you're trying to you don't want them
Yeah.
in that situation, but you're trying to figure out what you can get away with later on in the season, right? And so yes, I think they should play with 2 fouls in the first half, and I always use this football analogy, down in distance, right? You got to know that if I'm down by 10, or if I'm down by 6, right? If I'm up by 6, those are things that you use, but especially early, I play guys with 2 fouls intentionally, just so that they can see what it feels like and talk them through. Hey, you can't get a foul before the end of the half, right? And try to talk them through that. And in those timeouts, like, hey, you know what? Remember, you can't foul. You got 2 fouls. We don't need you getting 3.
Like that. Favorite holiday?
Oh man, I'm gonna have to say Thanksgiving, man. Probably because I eat too much. Christmas is right up there, but Thanksgiving, man, is like, yeah, it's friends and family. I don't like Thanksgiving.
What book would you give someone?
A book. So I read this book probably maybe every, I don't know, 10 years or so. I probably hadn't read it in a while, but 1984. Herman
Yeah.
Big Brother is watching you, man, because I believe that's like what we're living right now, right? Like, and they didn't know that back then, but like I think there's a lot of truth in that book, right? And I read a lot of John Wooden books, Pat Riley books, but like something like that to me is just kind of trippy, you know?
No doubt.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. Favorite place to travel?
Oh man, that means you have to go there multiple times, right? I love Hawaii, but I've only been there once or twice.
I don't think so. I think if you've only been a place once but you loved it, yeah, you could.
I'm gonna say that. Usually nowadays it's just wherever my daughter's playing softball. That's my favorite place to be in the summertime. That's what our summer. That's what.
How do you deal with the heat though?
Oh, you know what, man? It's like anything else. It's acquired, man. You go out there. Some people got their fan. You just put on a hat. You wear the little the clothes with the sun stuff in it, man, and you
Yeah.
just go out there and I mean they play like 5 or 6 games sometimes. And my daughter's a catcher, right? So she's got all that equipment on it, and she's out
Wow.
there. I know, it's wild. So yeah, I would say
Yeah.
probably my favorite vacation place is probably where she's playing softball. But like Colorado, we went to Colorado last year. Is beautiful. Colorado was really, really
Yeah.
beautiful. I was a little nervous
All
driving
right.
through the mountains.
That's fair. Last one, and probably the most important in basketball as a player, who's the GOAT?
All time, it's not even debatable, man. Michael Jordan is not like it's not it's
But
not
your
it's
players will debate you on that.
they do when they love to, right? They love to debate that, but I tell them it's really not debatable. And there's a lot of great players. Like Magic Johnson is my all-time favorite, but his defense was a little suspect, but he's still my Showtime Lakers, man. But yeah, I would have to say Michael Jordan for sure. For sure.
And part of it is it's when you and I grew up, we watched him in his prime, which is hard. It's not their fault, coach, that
Yeah,
these guys just haven't had anybody like that to watch in the
for
last
sure.
20 years of their life. But
For sure.
I'm going to give a player a shout out on this, which I don't do very much. But a junior that I have, Iris Thibodeau, I also had him in my speech communications class. And for his convince me speech or persuasive speech,
Yeah.
he did why LeBron is the GOAT and not Michael Jordan. And he knew the whole time that I was sitting back there and that it would just be burning me up. But I want to give him credit. Now, first, he didn't persuade me.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
like didn't
Yeah.
persuade me, but he did a darn good job of not just saying because he is, because he is. Like that's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
that's
yeah,
not a
yeah,
reason.
yeah, yeah,
But he brought up a lot of things about how people will say that Jordan has championships. And is that what it, well, if that's the case, then Bill Russell's the GOAT. Like, great point, Reese, great
yeah,
point. And he brought up a lot of things about what LeBron has done and who the teams he's had to play against and the players that he's had with him and over the years and stuff. So anyway, Michael Jordan is the GOAT, but it was a good
yeah.
try.
Yeah, no, I mean that's just what, yeah, we are creatures of habit, right? We saw Michael Jordan, but we also saw LeBron, right? And so I
Yeah.
think we're uniquely in this perspective where we've seen LeBron in his prime and Michael Jordan in his prime, and both are tremendous players. Like, don't get me wrong, right? You're
Rushmore for sure. Yeah.
for sure, but just Mike, man, he was just a straight. Oh man, just a beast. He was just a beast, and it didn't matter, man. Man, NBA back then might have been a little bit better too. That's just my opinion.
Mm.
Um, you know,
You
so
know, I go back and forth on that because I do think Jordan would dominate any era. I think he would be great right now because golly, they couldn't touch him. Like think of what
yeah,
the
yeah,
Pistons and the Knicks were doing to him. That's not happening today. The
no,
fouls are
no,
so
no,
light. But
for sure.
my wife and I and Landon went and watched the Spurs play the Thunder, and the spacing is so elite. The actions that they're doing, it may not be as beautiful at times. I saw this video the other day, coach, of it said today's basketball, and it had some kind of bad one-on-one going and a lot of change of direction moves in one spot and a
Yeah,
contested shot. And then it showed the Spurs from, the mid 2000s and teens where they're moving the ball and stuff. And, like I love that style of play, or the way that those teams, but they are doing amazing things today. And I watched coach a 7'5" guy block a shot, grab it, come down, go between his legs and hit a three. And then the next possession, he caught it behind the 3-point line, shot fake. The guy went flying by, took a side dribble, went up for a shot, but then fired a pass to a wide open teammate of the basket.
yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
just in awe. But
yeah,
of all of them, of SGA and how he is just unstoppable. They had to
yeah,
bring all four guys. I don't know what the Spurs coach was saying or doing, but I saw four, and all of a sudden, four dudes jump to the side of the ball where he's at. Like,
yeah.
I don't know, man. I
And
think,
the game's in a good place. I will say this: the
yeah,
game's in a good place. Michael Jordan revolutionized the game back then, but you can say Steph Curry, LeBron, they do it now. It's ever evolving. Like, if you're a fan of the game, right? You appreciate the era you were in, but you can also appreciate what's happening now, right?
yeah.
And so I just think some of these guys that can't shoot threes shoot too many threes. I do think the mid range. I like that the mid range jumper is back in the game. And sometimes I think one of the things you talked about was analytics, right? Man, it man it. It's good. It's like technology. It's
Can't
good till
hold
it's
you hostage, though.
yeah,
It can't
it's
hold you
no,
hostage.
it's
Yeah.
good till it's not, right? It's good till it's
Yeah.
not. And then you start thinking, and I get with where the game is and all of that. And, this guy makes a higher percentage from the right corner and then from the left corner, and we score in this. But then I wonder how does that play at the end of a game when I'm a player, right? And especially at my level, at the high school level, I'm not, the pros is different, right? At the high school level, and I'm trying to tell a guy, hey, you only can shoot from this, but this is your best shooting spot, right? And so he doesn't get to that spot, then what's going through his mind when he gets ready to take that shot, right? And I don't know, right? But it can't be good. If he knows, if coach is harping on me all the time, hey, this is my spot. This is my spot. You're making 70% of your shots from right here. And then the game's on the line. I'm not at my spot. Then am I going to panic and just turn it over? Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Does that
analytics
affect
is good.
confidence? Yeah.
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 Analytics is great, and we use it to a certain extent, right? But there's nothing like having a feel, or you ran something early in the game and you see something out there and you're like, okay, look, I think this will work. It happened recently. We were playing in the consolation championship of the HISD tournament. That was a win for us, and we're playing a good team. And so we run Houston, double screen away action, whatever, not oversimplicated. But then we have a cougar, which is a little counter to that. And so, kudos to my assistant for like, oh, we should do this, right? But yeah, so it actually worked, and the guy set the screen on the wrong side. Analytics probably wouldn't have said, give this guy the ball right here, right? It would have said something different, man. And so it's something about just having a feel and like using the analytics to like help mold what you're trying to do, right? But at the end of the day, I mean, I think you got to be able to do it from all places. And at some point, especially with these young guys, you get something in their head nowadays, and then it sticks. And then I think you might be having an opposite or a negative effect than what you really want to have, you know?
Man.
Yeah.
Coach, this was awesome, man. Just to have this an hour and 20 minutes with you, it flew by. I just
Yes.
appreciate you so much from being one of those guys that as a young player, man, I wanted to be like, and I wanted to do the things at the colony that you did. And then now to see the coach that you've become and man, that's the outward success that you've had, but I love getting to learn more about how you do it. And I can kind of tell why players like playing for you and you've had that success, but just so humbled to have this time with you.
Matt, man, it's a pleasure, man. It's anytime you get a chance to chop it up with one of the guys from the colony, man, people don't know what a special place that is, right? And you guys did a heck of a job after us. You know what I mean? Just carrying what we had put in place, and then the guys like you said you didn't know, Jason Genesek and Johnny Rodriguez, a bunch of guys, right, from '91 who I looked up to, and just that tradition, man, of having all these guys that I'm still in touch with, man, and you guys pushing the envelope and doing more and man, it's just like you look back on it and you don't know how blessed you were, right? You really don't know because you're just living it, right? And then you go now where you are and you get to jump on this podcast with one of my guys, man, and just catch up and talk hoops for an hour and 20 minutes, man. That's a Christmas gift right there. This has been a great gift, man. This has been a great gift, man. Just shooting the breeze with you, man, and just connecting. It's been fun for sure. So thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI Podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.